Here is your coffee.
Thank you.
The corner cafe. At 28, she had learned to find peace in the simple rhythm of her days, even if they looked nothing like the life she'd once imagined. The morning light filtered through the tall windows, casting soft shadows across the wooden tables. A new customer had arrived, a man in a charcoal suit who sat by the window, his attention fixed on something outside. There was something about the way he held himself, a quiet intensity that seemed familiar somehow. Maya approached his table with the coffee he'd ordered, her white shirt crisp and professional, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Your espresso, sir," she said, placing it before him. The man looked up, and for just a moment, his expression shifted. Something flickered in his eyes, a recognition he quickly masked with a polite smile. "Thank you," he said, his voice carrying an accent that had been softened by time but not erased. Maya nodded and turned to go, but something made her pause. She glanced back at him, studying his profile as he stared out the window. The slope of his nose, the way his hair fell across his forehead, there was something achingly familiar about him. But no, it couldn't be. That was impossible. She returned to the counter, but her hands trembled slightly as she wiped down the espresso machine. Her mind was pulling at threads of memory, trying to connect this stranger to someone she'd once known. The man stayed for nearly an hour, nursing his coffee and occasionally typing on his phone. Maya found herself watching him between customers, that nagging sense of recognition growing stronger. When he finally stood to leave, he approached the counter. Maya straightened, trying to compose herself. "The coffee was excellent," he said, pulling out his wallet. "You have a gift for your work." "Thank you," Maya replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "That's very kind." He handed her a bill far larger than necessary. "Keep the change. And if I may ask, have you worked here long?" "2 years," Maya said. "Since I moved back to the city." Something passed across his face again, that same flicker of recognition. "Back to the city," he repeated softly. "From where?" Maya hesitated. There was something in his tone that suggested he already knew the answer. "From a small town about 3 hours north. Riverside. You probably haven't heard of it." The man went very still. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Riverside. With the old stone bridge over Willow Creek. And the elementary school with the big oak tree in the playground." Maya's heart stopped. Her hands gripped the counter. "How do you know that?" He looked at her fully then, really looked at her, and Maya saw his eyes fill with an emotion she couldn't name. "Because I climbed that tree every day at recess. And there was a girl who used to read books underneath it, and sometimes she would look up and tell me to be careful not to fall." The cafe seemed to tilt around Maya. "Alexei?" He nodded slowly, and a smile broke across his face, transforming him from a polished stranger back into someone she'd once known better than anyone in the world. "Hello, Maya." Maya's legs felt weak. She sat down on the stool behind the counter, her mind reeling. "I don't understand." "Alexei Volkov. You moved away when we were 12. Your family, they just disappeared one day." "My father got a job opportunity in another country," Alexei said, his voice heavy with old regrets. "We left so quickly. I never got to say goodbye to you. I wrote you letters for years, but they all came back undelivered. We moved to my grandmother's house after that year," Maya said quietly. "A different address. I never knew you tried to reach me." They stared at each other across the counter, two people separated by 16 years and a chasm of unshared experiences. "I've thought about you so many times," Alexei said. "Wondered what happened to the girl who loved books and always defended the smaller kids from bullies. The girl who shared her lunch with me when my family was struggling and we couldn't afford much." Maya felt tears threatening. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything," Alexei said simply. Those memories, they shaped who I became. The kindness you showed me when we had nothing, it taught me something important about the kind of person I wanted to be. He paused, seeming to gather himself. Maya, I need to tell you something. After we moved, my father's business took off. He built a tech company that became very successful. I took over 5 years ago when he retired. I've done well for myself. Very well. Maya looked at his expensive suit with new understanding. And you're back here, in our hometown, why? I'm opening a new headquarters here, Alexei said. But honestly, I've been back for 3 weeks, and I've walked past this cafe every single day, hoping I might see someone I recognized. Hoping I might find you. You were looking for me. Maya's voice broke slightly. I never stopped, Alexei admitted. I hired investigators over the years, but you'd gotten married and changed your name. The trail went cold. I thought maybe I'd never find you. Maya touched the bare ring finger on her left hand, a habit from the divorce that had finalized just 6 months ago. I'm not married anymore. It didn't work out. I'm sorry, Alexei said, and she could hear that he meant it. They talked for another hour after Maya's shift ended, sitting at his table by the window. Alexei told her about building his company, about the success that had brought wealth but not necessarily happiness. Maya told him about her marriage to someone who never quite understood her, about returning to the city to start over, about finding unexpected peace in serving coffee and watching the world from behind a counter. You always did see things other people missed, Alexei said. I remember you telling me once that every person who came into your grandmother's store had a story, and it was important to treat them with kindness because you never knew what they were carrying. Maya smiled through tears. My grandmother was a wise woman. So was her granddaughter, Alexei said softly. So is her granddaughter. As evening approached, Alexei stood reluctantly. I have a dinner meeting I can't miss. But Maya, can I see you again? Really see you, not as a customer and a server, but as us? I'd like that, Maya said. I'd like that very much. Alexei pulled out a business card, then paused and turned it over, writing something on the back. This is my personal number. The one only a few people have. Because you were never just anyone to me, Maya. Even after all these years. 3 months later, Maya handed in her notice at the cafe, not because Alexei asked her to, but because he'd helped her realize she still had dreams worth pursuing. She enrolled in the writing program she'd abandoned years ago, the one she'd given up on when life got complicated and bills needed paying. And Alexei, successful and accomplished as he was, said the greatest business deal he'd ever made was walking into that cafe and finding the girl who'd taught him that kindness and character mattered more than any fortune. Because some connections transcend time and circumstance, and sometimes, the most important people in our lives are the ones who saw who we truly were before the world told us who to be.